Welcome to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy is a veteran U.S. Navy SEAL, a former protective officer for the CIA Global Response Staff, founder and CEO of the Able Shepherd Program, a husband and father of 4, and a personal friend of mine. Now here's Jimmy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. I'm your host, Jimmy Graham. I am joined today as a test run. Now this one, I doubt we're going to go on the podcast. We may cut the audio and pull it for this, the audio away and pull it. But for right now, we've been on you guys. We're testing the studio, and I want to thank right off the bat my two guests. So I've got, obviously, BK's back with us, Brian Karch. We know him as BK, Able Shepherd 051. We also have Pete Dernbach 058, first time. What's up? Not
First-time
listener, I guess. First time caller, first time listener, first time
First-time
podcaster. Cool. So thanks, guys. These guys are amazing with this stuff. It's what you do professionally is helping making all this stuff go. And BK's pretty gifted with it and has been learning about all of this new equipment we've got. Something we should have done a long time ago. Right now, due to the circumstances, this is recorded right now at March 30th, right in the middle of COVID. So we're going through all that, figuring out how we're going to keep the wheels on the bus and keep going forward. What I want to do is I'd like to, I believe you've got Skip Miller on the phone, and he's not with us right now, but I want to bring him on for an update. We've already talked about a couple updates, like along the way if you followed us on the Protector Culture podcast, but it's just changing so rapidly. Skip, you got me?
Yeah, how's it going, Jimmy?
I'm good, brother. You mind bringing us up to speed, kind of where we're standing as opposed to where we were a week ago?
Sure. So as most people will probably know by now, President Trump has extended the national shutdown till April 30th. So we went from, so we extended out at least another 15 days. And I think he did that for a really good reason. I mean, one of the things that I've been noticing a lot, what I look to Italy. Most of us agree, and everybody agrees that you really can't trust the Chinese numbers at all. So I don't pay attention. Like, people talk about China right now. I could care less about China because, we know that they're not telling us the right things, but we have good data from a couple other European countries, Italy being one. And, we're currently sitting, the United States is currently sitting at over 160,000 people infected with COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And Italy is unfortunately just broke 100,000. And they're looking at they're approaching an 11% mortality rate. So that's a significant, frightening development. Every time I look at it, the number is bigger.
Sure.
We're looking more at the United States. We went over 160. Our mortality rate's about 1.86. Worldwide, it's 4.85. And if you've been following the news at all, of course, New York right now is in the midst of, they're like 2 weeks behind Italy, maybe 3 weeks. And they're getting absolutely slammed right now with this huge spike that's hitting their hospitals and potentially overrunning their hospital system.
It's horrible. Skip, just by chance, did you hear there was a guy on the news the other night, and he was talking, I think it was last night, he was talking about, because we've always said these Chinese numbers, they're like, well, they contained it, they did that. We know nothing about China. They don't share the truth at all. So basically, the one thing I saw was like 25,000 deaths or something they're claiming, but then they said something about like 5,000 urns, that were ordered, for ashes, for cremation, and all that kind of stuff.
That was to one funeral home in Wuhan.
Oh, wow.
That 5,000 number. Yeah, and so, but to me, like, the way I'm looking at it is like, now we have, we've now passed 750,000 worldwide, the number of people that have contracted, the coronavirus. And so the disinformation of China is having less and less of an effect.
Sure.
The models that I've looked at that just completely disregard every bit of information from China, both the mortality rate, the number of people died, the number of people that got it. We know that it's all, untrue information.
Sure.
So let's all just stop paying attention to it at all and go with the numbers that we know are true. And those numbers paint a very rough picture for our, near future.
Sure, absolutely. Appreciate that. I mean, it's crazy right now, with the business stuff. We just had a meeting today. We have several meetings trying to figure out, as many businesses are, is like, what's the future look like? We talked about this on Sunday. Plum Creek is my local church. Doug Miller, one of my spiritual leaders. I don't know that we're going to have church again this year. Like, whatever happens. Now, I hate saying that, meaning that we're going to have church. The church isn't a building; it's a body, and that's exactly what we are doing. As we're doing worship and all that kind of stuff this weekend in our in our homes. But I don't know when it's going to be okay to get 300 people in the same room again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yep.
That's the part that is a little disheartening. Now, do we continue to do exactly what we've been doing? Yes. Do we draw closer? Do we tithe directly to church by different means? Absolutely, because that's what we're called to do. But that's what it's changing everybody's lives. Like our lives have changed over the last week.
It is, and like when I talk to people about so tell me about what you're doing today. Like I'll talk to I'm one of the big things that we're doing as a group, and you're certainly in the Able Shepherd is we're like keeping track of each other,
That's right.
calling people up, emailing, text, how you doing, what do you need anything, but also how are you doing? It's
That's right.
not just about stuff. It's like how are you doing with this? Most of us don't stay home a lot.
Yeah.
I'm really like, this isn't a fantastic, I always try to find the good,
Yeah, absolutely.
that I can on every single situation I'm ever in. And the big thing for me is like, find the good in this. I'm home. I'm at home enjoying myself with my family. I'm getting stuff done. I'm creating projects for myself to do, things that I probably wouldn't be able to do if I was, at work all the time.
Right, yeah. The president he said it like people are reintroduced to their families, and that's a good thing. Like we're getting your priorities. Like this is the way it should have been. Like went out with a Christian the other day. Rachel, I said this I think on our meeting, Skip, but I don't think I said it on a podcast show. Was the other day like Rachel starts the day like there's a bell that goes off on her phone, like a school bell,
An alarm.
An alarm. Everybody gets in there. They start with the Pledge of Allegiance. They listen to some worship music, and they all sit there and just listen, and then they pray, and then they start with assignments, and they go off to their rooms and do their stuff. And then that's how every day starts. And I'm like, man, this is amazing.
That's great.
This is the way, there should have been more of this before. Maybe not formalized homeschooling and all that stuff, but it was really cool, and she loves it. She loves being, so we're going to wean her out of the business a little bit, some of the stuff that she was doing. So she's not homeschooling and running a business and raising a baby.
Right.
You know what I mean? At least one of those has got to give. But thankfully, we've got other folks, obviously, that can do that. But I absolutely agree. I met two guys early in the morning going for a walk to just stay fit and all that kind of stuff. And then we were just talking about this, and that's exactly what came up. Is like, what is our job? Is to continue to be that light for others to see and lead the way. Because Skip, you and I had a conversation today. It's not just the virus. We talked about a gentleman today. He's in that bracket, and it's not the virus, but he may not be handling this well. Some people, it's not. They might not have it. They've never seen this in their life, and they're not really relating or coping to the current situation.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that you're absolutely right. Like, this is an opportunity to find a new path, a new way to both cope with rough stuff like we're dealing, but also just be able to find stuff in the simplest things.
Yeah.
I just spent an hour splitting wood, just kind of like just totally fine, just hanging out. I had might have had country music playing, but
you Skip Miller? What?
Yeah, right. It wasn't just me. I had country music going, but just finding stuff to do and like being able to apply your entire focus on some small tasks.
Yeah.
Really can make a huge difference in tough times when you're having problems, with coping with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to switch. I got Pete sitting here, and I know that you guys did a project, so I want to talk about this real quick with you still on the phone. We did have somebody call in or text and asking about generators and electric power and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to talk about that project. If you want to set it up and then Pete can explain kind of the gist of how to keep that safe if people are considering that. You want to tee it off?
Yeah, sure. So, so we live out in the country on a well, and although we don't lose power a whole lot, it is, absolutely a possibility. So we wanted to have a generator backup that allowed us to power our well, and some other key, keep the freezers going, keep the fridge going, that kind of thing. And so then I was talking with, my buddy Pete, who's there with you, and he's like, oh, I wired my house. And I'm like, oh, cool, because I'm not an electrician and I don't touch that stuff. So he did the research for us and kind of said, hey, go get this. And then we did it. How long did it take us, Pete, to install that from when you came in to when we were eating?
I think we spent maybe 2-3 hours.
And
that was
3 hours.
Tops 3 hours. And we were reading instruction manuals and making a few modifications to the way the install was initially meant to go. So it took us a little bit longer than normal. But
so roughly, what was done, and like, how'd you?
So
I know I'm like I can pretty much arc myself to this floor. That's about all I can do electronically. So I don't mess with that.
So first off, I want to preface this by saying I am not a professional electrician in any way, shape, or form, but I do deal a lot with power for what I do for a living, and it's also just been a hobby of mine for my entire life. So there are several different ways of installing a generator into your home safely and legally, and that's probably the most important part is the safety part. They can be installed in such a way that you can actually hurt people without even knowing that you're doing that. So, and a lot of people use the dryer outlet trick that I think a lot of people have heard of, and that's one of the ways that you can.
What does that mean? So really I got a generator.
Mm-hmm.
I fire it up. I buy the adapter and plug it straight into the dryer.
So you really can't buy the adapter. You actually have to make a cable.
That's for safety. So they basically
exactly.
Do it that way,
You won't see that manufactured. And what you would do is you'd have an outlet that has basically male plugs on both sides. Mm-hmm. You plug one into your generator. You plug one into your dryer outlet, and that actually feeds power back into your main power panel. And all the rest of the devices in your house can run off that generator now.
But you told me prior to this,
yes,
alarms are going off right now. Yep. What should happen prior to that?
So before you do something like that, and you should never do that. You should never, ever, ever do that.
Correct.
Right? So that's what we want to try.
So Pete, why will manufacturers not make a code for that?
So the reason why is that if you apply power to your panel and you leave your main breaker on, you're actually feeding power back into the cabling that comes from the actual power company. So for an example, if there was a storm for some reason, right,
yep,
and it knocked down a power pole, everybody turns their generators on, they don't turn their mains off, and they're feeding power back into their panel. That's feeding that electrical power back into the wires that those guys are out there, the linemen are out there, handling and trying to fix, and they could grab a hold of that and kill themselves.
So they think it's dead because coming from this way, they shut it off.
They shut
and
it
now
off.
Now power hit from this way.
And you're feeding it the other way.
Gotcha, okay.
So
that makes sense to me.
Extremely dangerous and very illegal to do. So there are a couple of options for doing it the right way. There are two relatively inexpensive ways of doing it, and there's a relatively expensive way of doing it. The all-out version would be to put in an actual backup generator that's sized appropriately for your house and that has an automatic changeover switch so that it actually detects loss of power from your main power source. It will actually start the generator for you and power the entire house.
That sounds like something I'd have at the office.
Exactly. Large buildings
because it's immediate, right? It's like you might see the lights flicker, right?
Well, it's not immediate. It's because it takes a while for the generator to fire up.
Okay.
There's another system, and probably getting a little bit into the weeds here, but I think a lot of people have heard of uninterruptible power supplies, or UPS. And the UPS in a system is designed to bridge the gap from the time the power goes away to the time the generator can come up to power and power everything else. And that's where you might see a little bit of a blip. But in a good system, you wouldn't see anything. The UPS would power the entire building right up until the generator came on, and then it would shut off, and the generator would be powering the building. That's typically used in
it's
critical.
Like Google.
Yeah, Google would have that. Television stations have that, right? They don't want their power to ever go down, so they kind of put that in place. For us, we're really just trying to get our power back up while we're waiting for the mains to come back online. So that would be really nice, and they actually sell relatively affordable systems for for if that's the direction that you want to go, you can certainly do that. That's something that I would definitely recommend you have installed by a licensed electrician.
What are we talking about price-wise? You say affordable thousands, tens of thousands?
I would say under $10,000, between $5,000 and $10,000.
Okay,
and
for
I'm just guessing.
4-bedroom, two-bath home.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotcha.
Enough to power that. They've actually come down significantly in the last 5 to 10 years, so it's not uncommon at all for people to do that. But for the rest of us who don't have the space to do that, don't want to spend that money on that, but do want to be able to, say, power our refrigerator or our well pump with a generator in times where we've lost power, we have a couple of relatively inexpensive ways to do that. The first one, which we did for Skip, was to install a generator sub-panel. And what that allows us to do is power very specific circuits, like the well pump, like the outlet that drives our freezer and our refrigerator, from either the mains power or from the generator, right? And that panel installs, and it ties in with the existing panel wiring, and has basically a switch for each circuit that allows you to switch back and forth between mains or generator. And what it does, that switch can only be in one position at a time.
Gotcha.
So it can only be powering by generator, and it can only be powering by main. So you can't put that switch in a situation where it would accidentally feed power from the generator back onto the mains.
Gotcha.
Right? The drawback to that is that only those devices that are wired directly to that panel can be powered by the generator. So if you only wire your refrigerator outlet and your well pump to this panel, and the power goes out, those are the only two things you're going to be able to power from your generator. Nothing else on your panel can be powered by that generator. And those panels you can buy pre-made, like we did for Skip. They have a little whip of wire that comes out, and you just connect the wires to the correct places, and the instructions are actually pretty decent for those. And you plug your generator into that, and you're off and running. So it's relatively easy to do. The other option is to do the legal version of the dryer plug trick, which you actually install what's called an interlock on your panel. You have to have a panel that's relatively new and capable of supporting that interlock kit, which generally you buy from the actual panel's manufacturer. So if you have a GE panel, you would look up your GE panel. They would sell you this kit. They're usually $50 or so. And all they are is a piece of metal that only allows the generator circuit breaker to be on at one time and not the main, or the main circuit breaker can be on one and the generator can't be on. And so it actually slides in between those two circuit breakers and only allows one or the other to be on at a time. So if you were to lose power, say for example, you would turn your main circuit breaker off, you would slide the interlock down, which would block the main circuit breaker from being able to be energized. And then it would open up and allow you to energize the breaker that comes from your generator.
Gotcha.
And when you do that, the nice thing is that when you do that, that allows you to drive any circuit in the house from the generator. So the process is actually turn your mains off, turn every single circuit breaker off on your panel, then enable the generator circuit breaker, and then only turn on select circuits that you need that you want to have powered, because the generator may or may not be capable of driving all the various loads in your house.
Gotcha.
Right? So you just want to make sure that you don't overload your generator, which will generally just pop the circuit breaker on your generator, and then you shut everything off again and kind of start from scratch.
What are we talking about for Skip's got a well pump, freezer, refrigerator, something like that. Power-wise, that's where you kind of lose me, is how much power does that typically take for just something like that? Not maybe not the whole house, because as I understand it, you hook that thing in, through the dryer cord and cut the power, then the house works as it normally did. Everything, is that right? With it just
correct.
Just
it
if
absolutely
I did
works just
right.
like normal. Yep.
If you had enough power to it. But if we say you restrict it to refrigerator, freezer, well pump.
So Skip, remind me.
We had 6. So we did freezer, well pump, which was 2.
Two what? Two.
It's actually 3. So the well pump is a 240 volt load.
Okay.
So it actually takes 2 breakers.
Okay.
And then we did a refrigerator circuit, which actually was basically all the outlets in his kitchen.
Yep.
And then we did a freezer circuit, which was actually several of the outlets in a utility room. And then we did a couple of other circuits in the house that we thought we might want to drive, say like the master bedroom, for example, and the garage. Of course, you need to size your generator for that. And you can get between 8 and 1,100 watt generators, 8,000 and 1,100 watt generators for roughly $1,000 to $1,200 now, which is absolutely unheard of. If you were to look back, 5 or 10 years ago, those generators would have been 2 to 3 times that cost easily for. Even for a crappy generator, you get a good generator, and they're even more expensive.
And
so,
Skip, you told me today, as we sit here right now in Parker, you can still get a generator.
Yeah. I was at Home Depot Saturday, and they had both. I think they had a Dewalt. It was a Dewalt like 55 or 6,500, watt generator.
Yep.
And then they also had the inverter, a couple smaller inverter generators. So you can absolutely still go out and get this.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said, like, what power are we talking about? When you've got a 240, a 240 volt need, like for a well pump, you need a bigger generator.
Yeah.
But like if you're on city water or you're you're on municipal water, you don't need one that big.
3,500 watt generator is more than enough to power a refrigerator and a freezer.
Okay.
Which, let's face it, in critical times, that's what we're worried about.
Right.
We don't want to lose our food, right? So we want our refrigerator and our freezer to work, and maybe you want some lights in the house.
I want to touch on that and bring it down. Had a lady on a walk that heard me and Vince talking about a generator. So me and Vince were out walking the other day, running the stairs, doing whatever, just trying to stay healthy. 6 feet, obviously. But this lady, she was asking about that. Like, why would one need a generator? And I'm like, okay, well, that's honest question. She just didn't know. She's overheard this, was very concerned. She's like, why would I need a generator? It's like, well, if you like we split a beef with somebody, like you can get a quarter cow, something like that. You may have $1,000 worth of beef frozen and you lose power, you're about to lose $1,000. You're about to lose your lifeline to your food. So that's when you could fire that thing up. Even with one like in my garage, I can plug that thing in and let it freeze and kind of turn it back off and manage that, correct?
Absolutely.
So I can do that version, start running extension cords out to the one that's running out beside the house kind of thing as well.
That's the easiest way to do it. Go get yourself a generator and plug in those devices that you need to power it, and you don't have to mess around with your panel at all.
Yep.
Now, one question I have is I hear you guys talking watts, and I'm thinking that's probably a measure of power. Do you have to consider amps at all? Like, it seems like a refrigerator or a freezer might have a big amp pole or something.
So watts are a function of voltage and current, which are measured in volts and amps, right? Multiplied together. So you multiply your voltage times the maximum amount of amperage, say a device may pull, which is generally listed on all electrical devices, and that gets you your watts.
Okay.
Right?
So should you have a buffer? Like if you needed 1,000 watts to power your fridge and your freezer,
that's a really good question.
Should you size 1,500 or 2,000 for capacity? Or
really good question. So some devices, when you turn them on, pull more power. They have a little bit of a surge. Most of the time, it's motor-related devices. So well pumps. There's a compressor pump in your refrigerator. When it turns on, it has to start that motor, and that motor takes usually about double for an instantaneous moment to actually start the motor. Now, while you don't need a 5,000 watt generator to fire up, say, a 2,500 watt load, you do need a little bit extra power to do that. So that is something you want to think about. But
is that peak? When they say peak, is that when it fires off?
Power,
that's what means it's going to pop up. It's not going to run there, but it starts there.
You can't run that continuously. And the generators will be rated for continuous power. In other words, how much current you can pull from them or how many watts they will provide constantly. And then they will give you a peak power as well, which is what you want to be concerned of when you have generators that are, or motors that might start up. They're going to be pulling a little bit extra power. So, and we saw that with skips, and you see that with any system. You're going to see those spikes in power.
Yep.
So that's a really good question. It's something to keep in mind. But again, those are momentary loads, so they.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Skip, got anything to add, brother? We're going to shift gears in a second, but you got anything that they might want to hear, the folks in the program?
On generators or in general?
In life, brother.
In
COVID.
life. I would take this as an opportunity.
Agreed.
Treat it like that in your mind, in your head. Treat it like an opportunity to do something that you haven't wanted to. Obviously, it's got to be at your house, but
Sure.
but like to pick a project. I hear all these people that are watching all these movies, and I'm like, and I'm fine. That's fine. Like, I'm not a movie guy anymore. I used to work for a company that I watch movies constantly, and so I don't watch them anymore. But like, find a topic that you always wanted to study and study it. Use this opportunity to become a better you. That's what I'm actively trying to do with this. And I think that, for the people that are really struggling with, what does the future hold? Make yourself better to prepare yourself for the future. That would be my final thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, we had this conversation. This is going to define kind of this program, the people in it, and our world will not be the same after this. Like, everything
Correct.
changed as of a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And that's it's a wake up call to see certain things. I know, BK just got off the phone. I won't go into that. He can share that if he cares to. I got a text from my mom saying that one of my cousins, not real close to him. It was my dad's cousin, and somebody that I met as a young man. We talked about the Skippies, but in his 60s, and we just lost him to the COVID virus. So there's stuff going on right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's getting closer and closer to home, to where somebody kind of asked in one of the groups I'm in, hey, does anybody even know? Because it's a big government thing. It's a scam, whatever. Does anybody even know anybody? And people are like, yes, me. Like, people are like piping in saying, my wife has been battling this for a while. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. This is not the flu. All of a sudden, people that had their head in the sand are popping their head up and going, wait, this might kill me. And then it just got real. So
yeah, and I think that like a writer that I read a lot, he put it this way. He said, he's like, we are living through history with a capital H.
Yeah.
Like, this will be the defining moment, the defining time period of our generation.
Yeah.
And this is a big deal. So one of the things that he said was, journal this.
Yeah.
Like write down your thoughts about what you're doing and what you're going through and what you're having to deal with, what you're having to overcome, the positives, the negatives, all that, and really take this as an opportunity to go, how can I be better? Where am I weak? Let me make myself better in that area.
Yeah.
Because you've got the time.
Absolutely agree. There's so many things that you're like, what should I have, whatever. I think I told you, jumped in the pickup truck, got a 95 Ford, BK calls it the farm truck, threw Christian in there yesterday, went all the way out about 30, 40 minutes is the Platte River out there, just hiking along the river with the boy. We look up and see a cave on the top of the mountain. He goes, can we go up there? I'm like, let's go. So we went up there, rolling into this cave. It's like,
wow.
I know. It's like, let me go in first and check this out. It ends up being like a cut through a rock that you can shimmy through, and then there's another one and all this stuff. Awesome. Just adventures, just memories, but that's, I think you're right. Just one for mental well-being. And we needed to kind of pause and just take a second, because we get caught, and we've been right in the middle of it, with the business growing and doing all that. You're in that rat race, and you blink, and I don't want to be in a spot where I blink and, my kids are leaving the house, and I'm like, hey, man, that's a done deal. So appreciate you, brother. Thanks a lot, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow, and we'll just keep on moving. I know we got a lot of stuff going on with the business, and we're waiting for a couple phone calls. But again, these are opportunities that we're going to end up. I think God's doing something great within this program. We're going to end up at a better place. Thanks, brother.
You bet. Thanks. Have a great one.
Cheers.
Good.
Okay, so on that, I wanted to kind of talk about what would I power. I'm in suburbia. I'm not. Well, yeah, I am too, actually. But like if you're living in these places, and what is that realistic? Power, water? What say you guys?
I actually don't know how my water gets powered. That's a terrible thing to say, but yeah, I turn on the faucet, it comes out. What a wonderful thing.
Right. So if in that instance, that's all powered. So if my power goes out at my house, that's one thing. But now if the grid goes down for, say, Castle Rock, where we're sitting right now what happens? And then I turn the faucet. What have you guys considered water at all? Because I know that this has been a topic in some of the groups that we're in. Have you guys personally done anything or considered that?
Yeah, I've got some storage in the basement of a relatively minimal amount of water with plans for more.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that this whole situation has really brought to the forefront is, you put these things in the back of your mind. You say, oh, I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that next week, or I'll do that next year, or someday I'd like to have, a decent amount of water storage in my basement, just for, just in case those things happen. And I think that's really, for a lot of people, especially in our community, has brought all those kinds of things to the forefront, and we've all started to do things about it and really started to think about it a little bit more. And generators are a perfect example of that, along with water and foodstuffs.
So anything BK on the water or food? Because I know that's been
what
a
I'm
wake-up
learning
call.
or what I'm picking up on developing is being able to self-sustain, whether it be a garden, whether it be water storage in your basement. I don't know if yours is sparkling or tap water, but I prefer
sparkling, of course.
Excellent.
I like bubbles.
You have the freezer full of meat, whatever it may be. For me, my meat always came from King Soopers in a nice little package.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe need to rethink some of that.
And I'll be honest, we got caught this year because we passed on an opportunity to split beef. We usually do that, but we didn't this year. And then, this would happen. We did the same thing. We did the Costco run, and Rachel's like, hey, how's this? I'm like, double that. She said, whoa, what? And it was like, hey, buy this now. One of the triggers, everybody wants to know a trigger. Like, hey, what are you looking at? What are you watching? It doesn't mean it's the right thing, doesn't mean it's an accurate thing, but I know you do it. I know Skip does it because you guys will update me. Hey, I just went to the store and you can still buy a steak. You can still buy red meat. If you can't, that's going to be one of my triggers.
Yep.
Meaning that I'm pay attention. I think our group, just because of what we do and who we are, we pay attention to this more than most, because one of the things I want to talk about today is these is radios, and there's more coming. So we have a group that is kind of leading the charge on this, and there's a bunch of data. So I want to share that with this video. Will be a link that's going to start having more and more in it. Right now, it's got what we call a truck bag, a go bag, of what that looks like on mine personally. People said, can you break down what you have in your bag? What's in your truck right now? What's in your bag right now? So we've put that in a document with pictures saying this is, and this is why. This is what I've got in here and this is why.
And it's a suggestion, or here's what works
That's right.
for you.
So you do whatever you want, but what I've found is people don't want options. They're like, what are you doing? I trust
Just tell
you.
me.
Like we said that in the podcast.
It's like anything else. It's so daunting that just trying to think of
Where
all
do I
the things
start?
that you want. Yeah, right? Exactly. I have no idea where to start. So having at least someone to give you a guideline of what you might put in a bag like that is a good place to start, and you can modify it and change it based on your own personal needs. So.
Right, and the people within this group, they've one of the things is comms. So comms, and this is another one of those touchy areas, with these particular radios, but there's radios out there right now. I've heard they're going to be limited by the federal government or cut off, and they're going to go away. So I got to know people are out buying them right now. But this is I'll call it a Baofeng because I'm not sure how to say it. BAOFENG. This is a tri-band, so this is the BF-R3, the BF-R3 on Amazon. $30 maybe, I'm guessing.
It depends on the kit, because you can buy one that has
Right.
the charger, the programming cable, or you can just buy the radio.
Right. Upgraded antenna, because as we go to, here in Denver, there's the ham radio outlet. You can go in and buy these antennas as per what band, to focus on those bands you're going to get. But then that's the first step. So it comes in a box. It's got some channels in it. You can go in and program it, as we've done, and that's going to be another thing for people in the program if you wish to consider this, because I mentioned it, and then from that, I don't know, 12 people bought the radios, right? Because can we talk? If the cell phone goes down, can we get communications, meaning we are actually on call now to help other people? Well, if you're going to approach their location and they just got robbed last night, they're going to be a little on edge. So it might be nice to give them a call on the predetermined freak on a predetermined network and say, hey, I'm going to be driving up, and I got a truck that you don't normally see because I've got a pickup, I've got a Yukon, whatever, the work trucks that we drive around the fields and all that stuff. I don't know what I'll be driving that day, and I don't want to get shot, right? Yeah. So then you say, hey, got a little pro word, yeah, Jimmy, I see you, come on in, that kind of thing, just to keep everything, safe and friendly. So that's another thing that's going to be coming. So please continue to watch us. We want to keep delivering valuable content, obviously, to all of our listeners and all of our members to go out there and just say, hey, something to consider. Paranoid, whatever, maybe. Is it too much? Maybe. Don't do it. If you want to do it, do it. But all the stuff that we have on here, we've got a lot of information coming, could potentially be life-saving. Now, we were already kind of predisposed to look in this direction. Some people got caught flat-footed. They weren't sure, wait, what are you doing? Hold on, whatever. They're running back and forth to the store. Whatever that is, don't care why you ended up there, but now let's make it better. So,
well, and I think it's interesting too.
I don't care if it was or not. You're still a friend of mine.
The whole radio concept for me was unknown. I mean, a radio to me was a cell phone.
Right.
So to Skip's comment a few minutes ago about be better or learn something new, that's a wide open area for me to learn is radio comms, whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
how to program, how to talk. The radio that Jimmy's pointing to is a tri-band radio with a tri-band antenna. Think AM, FM plus extra credit. That's the way I look at it.
And quite frankly, because I've got some getting programmed right now for some buddies, so they can be on the same channel, so they can be on the, worst case scenario, is that really this thing does so much. Like I was a military comm guy. That does a lot. That does a lot of bands. It does a lot of reach. Limited watts, basically, whatever. This is what we got right now. I've got walkie-talkies, right, that my kids could have. We've used them for work. Yep. There's 10 of them. They came in as a kit, maybe $150, maybe for 10 radios, right? These are programmed to talk to my kids' radio, and so is the one in my truck. So the one in my truck right now, if they were playing in the field, I could come on with an antenna that's mounted to the roof, a magnet mount. And this is what I did, and this will be in the kit, in the pictures along with the stuff. Is I didn't really want it in there where somebody could break it in and steal it because it's valuable. Pull that thing in and steal it, and I already have it, a brake module, whatever, brake controller. I took a WeatherTech cup holder. Have you seen this? Did I show you this?
No, not yet.
And I mounted it to that.
That's cool.
So now it's in a lock box in my truck. It's a locked steel box. I pull it out and I put it kind of behind me for the backseat cup holder. I plug it into the cigarette lighter and put the antenna on the roof. Now I'm pumping 25 watts, whatever, to talk to reaching those handhelds for the stuff that we do if we're off doing a nav thing or something like that, or my kids, whatever.
Like on a hike or something. I mean,
right. So now I've got this radio that's capable of this amazing reach and capability, but it'll also hit repeaters. It'll do all that kind of stuff. Ham licensed. I am licensed. Some people are, some people aren't, but there are bands on there that are those family bands and all that are walkie-talkie bands. So it's just a lot of capability for $30. I think the car one, do you guys remember? 150?
It was 125.
Right.
It's been Amazoned. It's up to 175 the last time I checked.
It's unbelievable, really, what you can get for the dollar anymore.
It's
truly
absolutely
unavailable. But I will say this, that just like firearms, they don't do you any good if you don't practice with them, if you don't study them, and you don't use them on a regular basis.
You can't say you don't have time to learn it anymore because that's all you got is time.
Exactly.
Can you bring up Parker? He's ready for a phone call. Going to check in with Parker Mansour. Obviously, him and Kara were out in New Zealand on vacation. We're getting a little bit worried, wondering if they're going to make it back. So they're back home safe. They're hitting this. I know I talked to him the other day. It's a little surreal. He comes back and he gets introduced to COVID right now in this stuff that we gradually came into. I was yesterday. I'm making up a gumbo, so I'm shopping for stuff, and there's certain aisles they're bare. The canned stuff.
Yeah, he mentioned that he was just even knowing what was, obviously he knew what was going on. He was just in shock to come back to, just the feeling out there, right? Going to the grocery store is a different feeling. Realizing that there may not be something in the grocery store that you want. I think we all assumed in the past, you go into the grocery store, they're going to have what you want.
Yeah.
For the most part, they're going to have what you want, unless it's a specialty item. You go in there, you may not have bread.
Yeah.
They may not have toilet paper, right?
Yeah.
They may not have steak or chicken. So you have to be ready to improvise, and it's a different feeling and different experience now.
Yeah, very comfortable. We live in a comfortable nation, and that's great, and that's the way it should be. But then when it gets, I've heard people say, our grandparents did it. I'm like, you're not your grandpa. You didn't grow up doing that. You don't know how to plant something and make it come up out of the ground. We got Parker on. Parker Mansour, what's up?
How's it going, brother?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Sitting here with two of my favorite people. So I got Pete and BK, and we just want to call, one, welcome you back, and then you and your lovely wife, Kara. And then how's this going for you, man? Like, we were just talking about, I don't know if you heard us, if you had it on the phone yet, but we kind of gradually went into this, and you got slammed into it and barely made it home. You want to share that just for a second? One, how close were you to making it back to the US of A, and then how you doing right now?
Yeah, so I was in New Zealand, pretty much the other side of the world. Let's see, 12, 14, 16 or so hours, 17 or so hours in flight time alone. So we went out there for, my wife and I, Kara, we went out there for our honeymoon. 22 days, I think, in country. We got out there, and about a week and a half after we got out there, this stuff started to happen back home, where, shutdown started to go on, the pandemic was announced and all that kind of stuff. So it started to change our view a little bit as it progressed, on a daily basis, hourly. We wake up every morning. They're about 20 hours ahead of us. So we wake up every morning, it'd be the, mid-afternoon back here in the States. And we'd get updates from everybody going, hey, this is happening. So we're kind of monitoring it. It was hard to kind of get a grasp on what was really going on, because there was news stuff that was going on. But as far as what was happening in New Zealand, it was nothing. It was just, business as usual. Travel was down. So the stuff we were doing was kind of like less people, but it was not really noticed too much. How close we were to getting home was pretty scary. So we got about 5 days left in our trip, and the announcement came out that said, if you're an American and you're overseas, get home immediately, or prepare to be stranded for an indefinite period. So we immediately decided to try to get a flight home, and it just wasn't possible. The airlines were waiving fees, but they weren't waiving fare upgrades and all that kind of stuff. So everybody, that was overseas is trying to get home. It was a major financial impact for us to get home that we just couldn't afford. So it was, go with the same flight that we originally had scheduled. Bunch of concerns about if that flight's actually going to go or not, but we didn't really have a choice at this time because there was no additional flights. We ended up being one of the last planes to leave New Zealand. So it started to get really hectic on the last couple days. New Zealand announced 48 hours they were going in total lockdown. Their lockdown looked a little bit different than ours. It was happening back in the States, meaning everything was shut down. Grocery stores, all of it was shut down. So we had 48 hours. Everybody started to go and do that. So we started to see a little bit of that panic and that panic buying, right? Where everybody's going to buy everything. I heard you guys kind of saying it before, we saw bread just fly off the shelves. Yeah. They had toilet paper, but other stuff, paper products, all that kind of stuff was just going off the shelves. So we ended up getting on our first plane, which was traveling from the South Island to the North Island. That was packed full. We get over to Auckland to fly home, and it was just delay after delay. Some issues with the plane, some issues with personnel, all this kind of, it just kept going one thing after another trying to get home. We ended up getting on that plane, and then we heard about halfway home or thereabouts saying like, hey, yeah, we were one of the last planes to leave New Zealand before the airport shut down.
So I know on this end, this is kind of the way we were, because we knew you were over there. At first it was like, hey, they're on vacation. They're in New Zealand, trip of a lifetime and all that. Let them enjoy it. Don't bother them with all the stuff going on back here, right? Literally, we were saying probably the safest place you could be. He's in New Zealand, fresh air, he's up on a mountaintop and all that. Went on a little bit longer. Then it was like, is he going to make it back? And then it went a little bit longer. I'm like, what do you have at your house? Because if you make it back, there might not be access to food and all that. So that's when the calls got more and more. And you're like, I'm not receiving updates. And I'm like, do you want them? Because I don't know that you want this kind of information. But now I started updating you because I'm like, do you need me to go buy food and put it in your house? That kind of thing. And I know you had some support and people there and all that kind of stuff, watching your dog and making sure that you're plussed up on some of that stuff. But I'm surprised, thankful, obviously, and surprised that you did make it home. Now that you're home, did it take a little bit of like a time to adjust because you got thrust back into you go in and now people are about to get cut trying to get a roll of toilet paper?
Yeah. So get home and thrown back into it. And honestly, it's taken a while to kind of set in. Reason being because, mandated quarantine as soon as we got home, 14 days. So I haven't left the house since we got back.
Yeah.
And so I haven't seen all of that personally. I've heard about it, heard the stories from you guys, heard the stories from other people saying like, oh man, the stores are crazy. Because then some dude got, what was it, like shot over a roll of toilet paper or something? It's crazy. But, hearing the stories, all that kind of stuff. And it was like something in the parking lot or something like that.
I have seen deals going down on the streets,
street, like,
right? Toilet paper sales going down on the streets.
Oh yeah. And then the hand sanitizer for $700 an ounce or something like that. It's going crazy. It's just nuts. But it really hasn't totally sunk in, except for the fact that, I want to go do something or go get something and part of the quarantine is I can't, or the other fact is the place just isn't open.
Yeah.
It's not considered critical, so it's not open. It's the mindset change that I've really had to try and get around is the stuff that I took for granted, not necessarily took for granted, but the stuff is, I can go to the store tomorrow and get that. Can't do that right now.
Yeah.
Whether it be because of quarantine, shelter in place, or the stores just aren't there, right? Hey, Chick-fil-A is a big part of my life, right? Going and getting food, it's convenient, all that kind of stuff. After teaching, whatever, it's not open.
Sure.
Or drive-throughs open, but it's super, super long. It's just the mindset of we can just go get what we want whenever we want it is totally changed since we got back.
Yeah, that's right.
That's one of the biggest adjustments that I've had. The other thing is yeah, we had plenty of food here. We've got plenty of food to survive. We don't have maybe the perks that we would normally have going to the grocery store once a week or every other day or whatever that may be. But having somebody go to the grocery store for me, bring food to the house, literally drop it on the porch, and I see their back as they get back in their car and take off.
Right.
Because we don't want to expose anybody to anything that's going on.
Drive-by food deposit. There's people chunking, canned meat at your house and running off.
It is that, and that's a totally different mentality to be thrust back into. In this, maybe the benefit was that when we were in New Zealand, right, we had to fend for ourselves, and we were trying to save some money so not eat out all the time. Plus, the places usually close semi-early over there, so it was kind of planned for a little bit of lack of the perks, what you say, on food.
Sure.
So it was a little bit of that, but getting back home, it's a different environment.
Anything you want to say to we're going to wrap it up here in a bit, but thanks for joining us. Be sure and tell Kara hello. You want to tell anybody in the program, any final words for all of our members?
No, guys, just keep on it. Keep with what you guys have going on, and at this community, reach out with anything you need. Everybody's more than willing to help. Even, I'm more than willing to help everything that I can in a standpoint of what I can do physically or what I've got here to help somebody else that may not have the ability to do that. And then this isn't a nonchalant virus situation that we have going on. We just got that extension on the shelter in place, another 30 days on top of that. So it's just continuing to get more and more real in everything. So just make sure that you reach out with what you guys need and, stay with us through this, and we'll just keep trucking along and keeping this community alive, because that's, part of the biggest thing about it is this community that we have, everybody willing and able to help out everybody else. It's not I have to, it's I want to.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the biggest assets we have in this is that we've got, 200 people that I consider friends, and it's been amazing. I mean, just, you guys can't see all this, but when I look around this studio, that was an impromptu, and now we're testing this out and going, and I'm looking at a monitor there and what's it called? Diffuse lighting here and a direct light there. I don't know. I'm learning.
It's called stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff, but very thankful.
Technical.
Thank you, brother. Tell the family hello, and likewise, let us know if you need anything.
I will. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, brother. Cheers. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Cool. So let's go ahead and wrap it up, guys. I want to finish off with, like, what is your life? It's different, obviously. And I know you share whatever you're comfortable with, because I know some personal stuff about both you guys and how this has affected you, but how's your life different right now than it was 3 months ago?
I think I've got two stories, right? So at the office, it's been rough. A couple of people were diagnosed and sick. So the routine of going into the office, having the coffee, the water cooler talk, that's a different adjustment. The upside to that, a good friend of all of ours, I'll leave his name unmentioned, but was talking about, hey, I'm closer to retirement now, and this is a good test for me and the wife. See if we can live in the house all day, every day with each other.
Yes.
And there's a lot of truth to that. And I would call it quality time, but just spending more time with friends, family, loved ones inside the house. It's a different aspect, a different way of running life, but one that I appreciate much more now. So those are the two ways it's affected me primarily.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Pete?
Yeah, for me, this has affected me in my work life. I won't go into details, but it has impacted my my work life. So far, it hasn't, but it has the potential to do so. So that's definitely got me on edge and kind of thinking about what my future looks like. But for me, it's really kind of brought to the forefront the values that I really should be focusing on that I wasn't necessarily focusing on before. I'm a single guy, so shelter in place for me means being basically in my house alone, all the time. And I didn't realize how much I valued the social interaction that that I got from work, but also very much so, and probably even more so, from Able Shepherd. I spent a lot of time there, and I kind of didn't really even think about why I might be doing that, but this has really kind of brought to light why I spent so much time, why I continue to spend so much time there. That social interaction is important. It's definitely high on the list for the values that I think we should all really be thinking about now. And so that's really it's really changed my outlook and really made that a very, very important thing to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I know, keep us posted too, because I know that you're waiting word on what your future is going to look like, and that's a huge pressure. And I know, like we said, you don't have to get the virus to be affected by this. Mentally, physically, all the above. So let us know. We've got an amazing
Absolutely.
program. One thing I know about you is way before this thing happened, you're all over town helping other people, like all the time. So that we're thankful. Like we're looking around, you're doing all this stuff and making the Velcro around the cords so they don't whatever. It would be a rat's nest right here if I was putting that together.
That's part of that. Kind of helping other things in social interaction. You
Yeah.
know, I love helping other people, and because I am, single, it's really, it's something for me to do. And I have plenty of stuff to do at home. I can keep myself busy forever, but I don't get to be around people. I don't get to see their eyes light up when I get to help them with something that they may not have necessarily been able to do themselves. And I just love doing that. So this has given me the opportunity to do a lot more of that than I generally do. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because it's like I could probably list 5 things right now, whether it's cutting steel, ordering ammo, running a long bed, flatbed somewhere, doing, whatever, hooking up electronics or whatever. I know that you're, that take care of one another. You're the epitome of that. You're going to take care of people. And you got hit a little bit, caught you off guard because, as you said, you travel a lot, single guy, so you didn't have stores of food. You're like, wow, I got to get it right now. I got to go get, you got to, it'll go bad.
Yeah, a little bit ashamed to say that, like you said, I try and keep my house relatively bare intentionally because I'm never there, and it's wasteful and it's expensive to keep a bunch of food in the house that you don't really need. And so I found myself going into the grocery store the first time I really started to see the panic buying happening, and I realized, man, I'm gonna have to be part of this because I just don't have anything in the house. I was very lucky that I do go into the grocery store basically on a daily basis because I buy my meals on a daily basis, or at least I did. And now that's not the case, but it's got me back into cooking as well. Like I just spend a lot of time going out to eat and in doing that rather than cooking for myself, because sometimes it's a little bit difficult to cook for individual meals. Which is why I shopped really kind of on a daily basis. But this has really gotten me back into one of my passions, which is cooking. I have to figure out how to store all the food that I'm cooking, right? But it is building up stores for me, and now I have stuff where I can go back to and take individual servings out and use it that way. So it's been really good.
Awesome. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, guys. The one thing I want to talk about just real quick that I want to finish with is how this is different. Obviously, the family thing, friends. When we started this business in BK, you've probably heard me say this before. We were blessed since 2012 when we started this. I left, the SEAL teams, then I left the agency, CIGRS and all that stuff. In 2012 was my last trip. We were blessed the entire time from then until the present with relationships. And when you're living it, you're like, cash will do just fine. Anytime that you can't pay your, mortgage and a building and start a business off of relationships typically. So we didn't realize what that was. But ever since then, we have been blessed richly with, I tell people we're rich with relationships. One really cool thing is that when the business does turn, when you stick to it, and now we're going on year 8 this year, if my math is correct, is just going and going and going and ups and downs and all that stuff. Well, those relationships didn't go anywhere. So I know so many people, more people in this town than I do in any town I've worked, counting military, all of them combined together. From where I went to high school to went to military to went to everybody, based off of that same business that was born in 2012. So that community now is looking, now I get it. I understand what that looks like now. And I'm in such a better place. The other day, and this is another reason, is because my faith, is I meet with guys, usually on Fridays, and it's been all jacked up because we meet at a breakfast place and we talk, and maybe 5 or 7 years I've been meeting with these guys. So one of the guys goes, and this is for you, Vince Hinman in Corrigan. He goes, "Hey, let's meet at the walking trail. Keep our distance. Let's meet and do a little fitness walk. Egg McMuffins in hand, 6 o'clock or 6:30 it was. Done. So I get up in the morning. I go to McDonald's. I don't even know the last time I've been to McDonald's. Pick up Egg McMuffin, classic, because it's like I just remember make me feel like a kid again. We didn't do much exercise, and we thought we'd walk to the top of the stairs at Castle Rock and watch the sun come up. And had an amazing conversation with these guys, and we're talking about this, and we're talking about God, and we're talking about, due to another conversation that Vince and I had, we talked about for some reason the book of Job came up, and I was talking about, hey, this Job. I go back and I read the whole book of Job. And you guys don't understand. When I say I read a book, I mean I listened to an audio book on the way to work. Okay, no, I sat and opened up the Bible and I read the book of Job. And I'm a slow reader. My daughter was like, "Have you been up there doing your devotions this whole time?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I've been up there a little bit." I'm like, "I'm a slow reader. It's not exactly a short book." Amazing. And I get it. If you get kind of how Job goes, maybe that's enough. I would encourage everybody to read the book of Job. If in one particular instance where it talks about where God was so sure of Job, he tells Satan to go ahead and check this guy, test him. Not my guy. You can test him, but he ain't going to give in. He's not going to compromise his integrity. And this reminded me of Skip and I did a podcast. He's not going to compromise integrity no matter what you do to him. You can starve him. You can kill his kids. You can kill whatever. You can take his crops. Everything's stolen. He's about to die. He's got festering whatever. And he's not going to break. And he didn't. So he had some questions and he was pissed off and he was talking to God and he was doing all this. But he said, "I will never compromise my integrity." And I started thinking about what does God, if he thinks so highly of this man, what does the guy look like? I've missed this the entire time I studied Job when I was in college, whatever, taking classes at Liberty University, is there's one line in there where it goes on about him talking about himself. And I'll mess this up because I just popped in my head. I didn't look it up. Is he says, when I spoke, people listened. When I walked through the square, the young men got out of the way. And when I spoke, others covered their mouths, stopped talking, and listened. And when and after I spoke, no one else spoke. It was like he was that guy. He said, I'm just going off memory, is that I made the widow's heart sing. He tried to bring joy into widows' lives, and if somebody was wrongly accused, he would raise his hand and stand up for that guy when nobody else would. It was just an amazing thing where if God thinks so highly of a guy, we should pay attention to that. Yeah, I know he loses everything and he gets it back in the end, and it was way more and all this stuff, and his first kids were in heaven, and that's a happy thing, and then he had other kids. I get all that, but I miss that part. Meaning I want to be the guy, and I think we've started something heading down that road to where there's something like this, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about this. I'm nowhere near the way I would have been during COVID 5 years ago. I'm a dad. I own a business. I'm not sure what's going to happen with my staff. I'm not sure what's going to happen with my business. I'm not freaking out, and that's a big deal. I'm a little anxious and concerned, but again, I'm kind of bring it on. Me and Neil had this great conversation the other day, and we were just talking about this. Like, are you feeling this? And I'm like, I am. I'm feeling this deal where we're going to be a light for others, and then once this thing is sorted out, we're going to skyrocket through to the place we were trying to be, and then keep going. So, anyways, if that can give any hope to anybody, I would challenge you to at least look at those passages, but challenge yourself to read the book of Job because it's unbelievable. It really stuck with me. So, until that, anything final words? Last call. Okay, cool. So all this seemed to work great. We just wanted to test all the equipment and do for the first time a video running with our podcast. One of the things, like I said, if you're interested in the comms plan, we'll share that with everybody in the group. This is going to go out to our members, and we're going to keep this coming. One of the links that's going to come with this video is going to be to a Google, what is that called? G Drive,
Google Drive.
Google Drive. That's going to start sharing more and more content. Right now, thank you, Brad Schuler. He put my go bag on that line. If you got any questions about that, we're going to start sharing more and more as we start. Other people have put this information together, but it's way ahead of most. So we're going to start sharing that with you. If you got any questions, let us know. If there's things that you want to hear, topics that you want us to talk about, we'll continue with the updates, but make sure you hit us up. AbelShepherd.com, so it's AbleShep, Herd. Please follow us on the Protect Your Culture podcast, and that's available on most of them. I don't know what all the podcasts are, but I know it's Apple, Spotify, Libsyn, like all the big ones, and check it out. Give us a 5-star rating and write a review. That's how those algorithms catch it and get out to more people. We feel like that this is potentially life-saving stuff, and especially on the culture stuff. It's a big deal to share this stuff because you never know who's hanging by a thread. So if it gives them any hope or any resources that could potentially be life-saving, or just pique their interest and let them know they can be a part of something bigger than themselves, then we need to get it out to everybody that we can. So what did I say? 5-star rating. Abel Shepherd on Facebook. I forgot about that one. AbelShepherd.com. With that, or I think we went over time, but that's okay. Everything seemed to work. Look forward to seeing your faces again when we can train together. But until then, we'll keep the content coming. Until then, God bless. Take care of one another.